Today, what usually stays behind the scenes: crutches people run on, disabled wheelchairs, people easily rise from, blind people who read a newspaper, and car crash victims who throw themselves under the wheels. Today, we will see dozens of schemes, from cheap tricks to well-planned operations with a family business, and the twists here are far more intense than any TV series. Enjoy the viewing.
I don't have no car! Get the hell away from me right now!
I don't have a car. Leave me alone right now. Daniel constantly saw an elderly woman with a sign. Supposedly she was 78, a widow, in need of help. He was moved so much that he gave her money every day. Once he even skipped lunch. Until one day he noticed her behind a gas station. She was counting a thick wad of cash and getting into a car. When asked directly, she denied everything, but the camera captured it all. More and more often, people are advised to give not cash, but assistance cards, because kindness is sometimes exploited. Easy money is a scammer's dream, but not everyone is smart enough. Watch the dash cam footage. In Browns Plains, Australia, a woman suddenly lunged toward a car. A second later, it became clear to the driver this was not just an accident for insurance, but also an attempt at carjacking. An accomplice hid behind the trees, and from behind the car, other people were already running toward him. The driver's quick reaction saved him from serious trouble, and the dashcam recorded all of their intentions. In Shirdi, India, a man with his wife stood on the street asking for help. His arm was tightly bandaged, his expression tragic. But something did not add up. A police officer stopped and asked him to remove the bandages. He stalled, but eventually complied. Under the wrap, nothing that needed to be bandaged. It was all a lie. The wife tried to wriggle out of it, but they were simply warned and released. Would you have done the same as this driver? A loader noticed a man by the roadside, limping on 2 canes. It seemed hard for him to walk, but the longer the video went, the more obvious it became. Things were not as they seemed. The man straightened up, tucked the canes under his arm, and strode at a normal pace. A minute later, he approached the cab and asked for money. The driver still gave him a bill. Watch closely. At first, it seems as if the driver of the dark blue sedan made a mistake while turning and narrowly avoided a collision. But that is not the case. When the car with the dash cam was driving according to the rules, the blue car could easily have yielded the way, or not pulled out at all. And this was not an isolated episode. A few days earlier, the very same sedan tried to pull off the very same thing. The footage clearly shows how it accelerates and almost puts itself in harm's way. Tough luck. Behind the wheel again was the same driver with the camera. He filmed both the attempt itself and the scammer's U-turn after the failure. To survive, you don't have to sleep on the street. Near a bedding store in Liverpool, James noticed a familiar beggar, the one who stood watch there constantly. That day, he was walking with a normal gait. James came up and asked whether he lived nearby. "Seems you met my girlfriend last night?" "Uh-huh." "Yeah." He did not deny it, and he revealed the most surprising thing. When James reminded him that he had been telling people a completely different story, the man shrugged and called his activity professional begging. It's like a job. It's called professional begging. It happened in South Africa in 2017. A man sat by the road in dark glasses, pretending to be blind. Passers-by pitied him and gave money. But one person noticed something odd. The blind man was confidently putting the bills straight into his pocket without missing once. The person who approached decided to check and made a sharp movement with his foot. The blind man flinched immediately. That was enough. In conversation, he admitted he was not blind. He just needed money. At least there was honesty in the finale. There is a group of beggars who may not be as needy as they appear. At first glance, a normal family in distress. At shopping centers, they held signs saying, "Need food, lost our jobs." But one day they were spotted in the San Fernando Valley and then in the Santa Clarita Valley, 20 miles away. "Stop begging in Santa Clarita, we don't need this. I'm tired of paying for your..." A man came to visit relatives and saw them there. He contacted a TV station and reporters started surveillance. The family would fold up their post, get into a clean rented SUV, and head to a new location. It was not need, it was a scheme. When journalist David Goldstein approached them, they simply drove away with their eyes down. The police were also notified. After that, they were not seen again. "What are you doing? Are you really homeless? Really unemployed?" "Yes, I am homeless." This guy decided to scam a cafe in Middlesex County, New Jersey. Video from the cameras shows an elderly man in a baseball cap pouring ice into a cup, setting up a scheme that would backfire on him. Making sure no one was nearby, he dumped the ice onto the floor and pretended to slip. The performance was terrible, and cameras were all over the dining room. As a result, local police detained him. 2 years of probation, 14 hours of community service, and $600 in restitution to the establishment. You could say he wrote a check his body couldn't cash. This case almost fooled everyone. The camera footage shows a man crawling on the ground while his wife and children walk behind him. A picture designed for pity, until they reached the stairs. He immediately stopped, stretched his legs, and walked as if nothing had happened. He did not even look back. He just stood up and walked away. The video hit the internet, and people joked that his beggar's shift must have ended. In Bangladesh, a man lay on a cloth, with a scatter of coins next to him. From afar, it seemed that locals were supporting him. But they were not. They were urging him to get up. One shopkeeper had seen him walking the day before. A quiet crowd gathered. Everyone waited to see what he would do. The sick man silently gathered the coins, folded the cloth, straightened up, and left. In a shopping area, a man was playing the violin, earning tips. The sound, like from a recording, until a music teacher walked by. He tossed some money and asked him to play a different tune. "Will you play something else? Any other piece?" The melody did not change. Suspicion grew. The teacher looked closer and realized the notes were too perfect. He asked him to play without the speaker, and everything was exposed. The violinist protested, but he was caught faking to a backing track. He silently packed up and left. While directing traffic, an officer noticed a man in a wheelchair at a traffic light and a woman standing behind him. It seemed they needed help, and he approached. But the closer he got, the stronger the feeling that something was off. The man's legs looked fine, and the officer gently asked him to stand up. At first he denied it, but after a bit of pressure, he slowly stood. The policeman did not escalate. He simply warned them. Stop staging such scenes, especially when there are people who truly need help. A beggar came up to a woman's car, tapped on the window, showed a bowl already full of money, and would not leave. She looked, lowered the glass, and silently took all the money from his bowl, then drove away. He ran after her yelling, but she disappeared. Which is worse? It is hard to say. To me, both actions are equally bad. Disability scammers literally rob taxpayers by claiming to be completely blind. John Calabiano claimed he had lost his sight at work. He said he could not drive, cook, or even walk without a guide. A friend drove him to hearings, and he sought nearly $1 million in compensation. But a few days before that, cameras filmed him near a store. He was reading a newspaper and walking by himself. In another video, he was behind the wheel. That was enough. The case collapsed instantly. He had a partial loss of vision in one eye, the other saw normally, and the camera showed everything. He said he does not work out, cannot pay bills, cannot read medication labels. All of that turned out to be a lie. An elderly woman stood by the road and shyly waved her hand. Her entire wrist was bandaged. But one day an officer stopped and calmly asked to see the wound. She hesitated, so he carefully unwrapped the bandage himself. Under it, nothing. The woman lowered her eyes. She was ashamed. The policeman did not make a scene. He simply warned her, if it happens again, there will be consequences. A man walked to work along the same road, and every day saw a beggar crawling on the ground as if he could not walk. At first he paid no attention, but over time he grew suspicious. It was all too rehearsed. In the morning he came up and calmly said, "The police know. They are already on their way." That was enough. The immobile man instantly leapt up, tore off his pants, and sprinted away. In seconds, the roll fell apart, and the truth became visible to everyone. A man sat by the road with a cane, pretending to be blind. People stopped and threw money. A woman nearby decided to check. She waved her hand in front of his face, no reaction. She slightly swung her bag, and he jerked sharply. The mask fell without words. He realized it too. He kept silent. Some deceptions collapse without a single phrase. In the middle of a busy road, a young guy sat on the ground and begged, as if he had only one leg. People slowed down, tossed coins, and walked on. But the police were watching. When asked to clear the way, he refused. Then an officer came closer, removed the cloth, and both legs were revealed. The illusion ended. The youth stood up and calmly left. This is why it is important to drive slowly in residential neighborhoods. London. A dashcam records as a driver moves along a narrow street when the owner of a silver BMW flings the door open, hoping the driver would crash into it and pay up. But the driver manages to brake. The doors closed, and a few more suspicious types peek from behind a parked car. An obvious group attempt at a setup, but a complete failure. In Cambridge, surveillance cameras noticed a familiar group. They had already been suspected of street cons. They arrived in a car with Romanian plates, paid the parking meter for the whole day, and headed into the center. Near the shops, they split up in different directions, so as not to attract attention together. One even took crutches for credibility. They did not know that local services had been monitoring them for a long time. The final shots show them returning to the car. Whether they were caught that day is unknown, but there was already enough footage for the case. In 2016, a man noticed a person on a small trolley. He was gliding along the sidewalk, pretending he had no legs. The movements were too practiced. Something did not add up, and the observer decided to stand nearby. After a few minutes, the beggar reached to adjust his overly wide pants, and the truth surfaced. The legs were tucked and cleverly hidden. Realizing he had been found out, he pushed off with his hands and quietly rolled away. I was desperate. I needed to scrape together some money somehow to... On a corner in Woodland Hills, Larry stood with a sign. No job, no money, 80 years old. People stopped, gave cash, wished him luck. But behind that cardboard sign, Larry had a modest apartment with his wife, 2 cars, and social benefits. Neighbors argued. Some called him kind, others dishonest. You look, and he's a respectable elderly gentleman. Larry said he was not pretending to be homeless. It was just hard to keep up with expenses and treatment. But the sign did not say any of that. And now, many do not know how to feel about it. On a busy street in China, a man dragged himself along the ground, wrapped in fabric below the waist as if he had no legs. People pitied him and tossed coins, until a girl walking by accidentally stepped on the fabric. A second, and the truth was out. The legs were there and worked just fine. He sprang up, grabbed his things, and without looking back, dashed away. For a disabled person, he ran very fast. In Pakistan, during a live broadcast, a man crawled along a busy road, pretending he could not walk. The sight aroused sympathy in passers-by, but a local resident watching nearby did not believe it. He calmly approached. "The police are already coming. Stand up." A brief pause, and the man stood without any problem. Cameras were rolling. People around filmed it too. In the end, the man admitted he was just playing a role. 7 fake beggars have been detained in a targeted operation. In Melbourne, 7 people flew in from China, not for sightseeing, but for work you would not expect. Every day they spread out across the streets, portraying despair. Signs, sad faces, staged scenes. This was no accident. The police observed and eventually proved it. A coordinated group turning the kindness of passers-by into a business. They were detained, found guilty of begging and possessing proceeds of crime, and deported. Police noticed a fundraiser dressed as a woman. Something about the way she dodged questions raised suspicion. Officers asked her to stand, gently lifted the scarf, and under it was a boy. When asked why, the answer was simple. People give to women more often. A small scene, but very telling. For money, some will go far. Don't bark at me. Clear? And what are you going to do? You're asking for money. In Richmond, a man was looking for someone to help and came across a woman who introduced herself as homeless. He asked how much she managed to collect in a day. She avoided the answer and demanded he stop filming. The suspicions only grew. In the following days, he watched from afar and eventually saw her get into a well-kept car and drive away. Then he approached fully prepared and filmed the unmasking in close-up. The mask fell instantly. Investigating street tricks in India, activists saw a man by the road who seemed to be missing an arm. He hid the other under his shirt and said he had lost a limb. But when asked to show the arm, he refused. Then, one of them gently lifted the fabric, and the hidden hand was revealed. Without extra words, they led him to the local police and moved on, to look for more like him. Every morning, one person saw him at train stations. Bent knees, fixed legs, twisted posture. It looked believable. He even gave him money daily. Everything changed one afternoon in a park. The same person walked absolutely normally. In shock, the benefactor approached and asked point blank. The man admitted there was no job, and this was how he survived. He even demonstrated how he created the fake pose, a daily performance for small change. Hey, don't walk away. I want to talk to you. At a busy Baton Rouge intersection, a couple held a cardboard sign and asked for donations. They looked tired, so much so that your hand automatically reaches for your wallet. It looks like the same scam is operating here. But as soon as you got closer, they recoiled, hiding something under their clothes. They had been seen before, with the same plot about a sick child. Local charities now warn, not every touching sign is worth believing. Somewhere the story is real, somewhere not. Another man was caught using the same trick. He sat on the sidewalk with his pant legs lowered as if one leg did not work. When police approached and asked him to explain, he did not argue. He quietly pulled down the layered fabric, and it became clear how he had tied his leg with ropes and rags. The knots were untied, the leg returned, and he was taken away. In Delhi at a traffic light, a man stood with one sleeve tucked inside his shirt, asking for help as though in desperation. But nearby was someone who had already seen this trick. He started recording, came up, and asked him to show the arm. The truth opened instantly. The arm had not disappeared anywhere. It was simply tucked away. A simple trick that worked for a long time, until someone said, "Enough." Okay. Seems I saw you on the corner with a cup. Do you remember me? Every morning, a woman walked past a man with a cardboard sign. Homeless? Any help? The same corner, the same face. Until one day, she saw him going to a white car. Clean, new, clearly his. She decided to follow. She drove through several blocks until he reached a house and went inside. She asked him directly. He did not exactly confess, but he did not deny it either. A man hobbled along the sidewalk, leaning on two canes. Every step, like pain, people gave him change. Police were watching nearby. One officer approached and looked closely. The legs were fine. Without extra words, the lame man grabbed the canes, slung them over his shoulder, and bolted. The police did not chase. Performance over. By the roadside stood a man in military uniform, asking passers-by for help. Most people walked by, until a real veteran happened to be nearby. One glance was enough to understand. Something was wrong. He stopped and sternly demanded that he remove the uniform immediately. The soldier stayed silent, and the veteran would not relent. What he was doing was disrespectful to those who risked their lives. Cars began slowing. The scene grew noisy. Realizing he had been exposed, the man did not argue. He simply retreated. "Have a nice day," and throw that away. Do not wear it again. One man constantly saw a woman at a station claiming she could not walk. The story, every time the same. He believed it until one day he noticed how she walked perfectly normally through a crowded station. She reached her workplace, sat down, and the performance resumed. He did not argue, but he uploaded everything to YouTube. Near Fifth Avenue stood a seemingly exhausted woman on crutches, asking for alms. She moved barely at all. Many, out of pity, gave her small change. She did not know she was being watched. A group investigating street fraud tracked her route for several days. They saw her walking without support, moving from place to place on two quite healthy legs. She got on a bus in Queens, walked home, and even managed to drop into a store. On one of the days, they waited for her at her favorite spot on Fifth Avenue. When they exposed her, she did not throw the crutches away, but she walked much brisker, just to get out of sight faster. "We have watched you for several days. You do not need those crutches, right? This morning you were walking absolutely normally." At first he looked like a guy without an arm. The sleeve padded, the setup convincing. People gave money. One man noticed. The arm was hidden under the shirt. He decided to follow. Later he saw the same guy in a store. He was buying shoes. Once spotted, the young man ran. He was not caught, but now people are warned. A guy stood watch at a traffic light, performing neediness. Drivers gave him money, but someone was observing. As soon as the light turned green and the cars drove off, he straightened up, stretched, and calmly walked away. Click, and the role switched. A couple of steps gave the whole story away. A man in a wheelchair asked passers-by for money, speaking slowly with a trembling voice. People stopped and sympathized. He called himself Gary, but the cameras showed something no one expected. "Bye, bro. I'm just messing around. I gotta go. Need to make money." Journalists secretly followed him for several days. When they approached and called him by his real name, Gary Thompson, he stood up. It turned out he had not only been pretending, he had studied the speech patterns of people with paralysis to sound convincing. He made thousands from this. When asked why, he did not argue. He just smiled and got on a bus, as if nothing had happened. Sometimes cameras record not only lies, they capture the truth no one was supposed to see. Thank you very much for watching. Maybe you have some similar stories where people, pretending to be someone, tried to profit. Be sure to write that in the comments and watch previous episodes on the Top Facts channel, which you will also really enjoy.